Sure.
Is anyone else doing it?
Is anyone else doing it? That's a great question if you're on the sales force to ask. Is anybody else doing this? And to the best of my knowledge, no. There are some great scholarly editions online. There are some fantastic archives of editions. So for instance, I recommend to you the Blake Archive, which gives you photographic digital facsimiles of all the known extant books of Blake, so you can see the variations among the Book of Thel or the Marriage of Heaven and Hell and so on. It's accompanied by a print scholarly edition, but that's all it is, and it's only Blake. Or the Walt Whitman Archive, which is quite wonderful, which gives you the 8 different instantiations in Whitman's lifetime of Leaves of Grass. Boy, that's a wonderful tool. But that's not what this is. This will be, if somebody buys the Renaissance, they will buy, more than 170 scholarly editions. And the power that they'll have, therefore, for their historical and interpretive researches is unparalleled, and nobody's doing that. But also, just think about if an institution bought OSEO and they were interested in remote learning, which is a big thing in university campuses all over the world now. Professor would have not all, but many of the great texts in the Western canon at her disposal, and distance learning now is not a problem in terms of, well, how could you get that text in Dubai? Or how could you get that text in Georgia? Or how could you get that text even in, dare I say, Cambridge, Massachusetts? Well, if you used OSEO as the basis for your course pack, you could do it. Or if 2 scholars or 3 scholars are working, say, between London, Oxford, Chicago, and LA, and they're co-working on a particular text, how do they determine what the shared text is, and how can they use it in a way that they can bounce it back and forth and work on it together? Well, with OSEO, all of a sudden group work is possible in a way it never was, it seems to me, because the electronic text is there for the whole research team in ways that could be very powerful. Of course, it's assuming that the institutions subscribe, but you see the point. It does you no good if you don't have it. That much we're clear about. I think it's a great research tool. I think it's a great convenience for people, but I also think it's a great teaching tool that maybe most people wouldn't think about. Are there other? Please.
I just wondered why you chose to start with 1485 to 1660, whether it was because of the strength of publishing that we have in those periods, and because it's a particularly strong area in our tradition.
Sure. So the question is, why did we on the Oxford Scholarly Editions Online team start to make the first tranche from the 1480s to the Restoration to 1660? I think it was because our holdings were good there, but I think our holdings are excellent throughout all the periods, really. We had 2 very good scholars, and the Renaissance is a highly populated area that Renaissance scholars seem to know about the need for scholarly texts probably more acutely than some scholars in other time periods do. So I think that would, it would accentuate the need for it. So in the history of textual scholarship, after studying the classics and the transmission of the Bible and other sacred works, really people like Fredson Bowers and people like Sir W.W. Gregg and Bald at Chicago and some of these other chaps, they were all Renaissance scholars because they were interested in not the transmission of the Bible, but the transmission of, as it were, the English secular Bible. They were interested in the transmission of the first folio of Shakespeare. And so, since they wanted to know about Shakespeare's plays, and then they started to learn about other play texts, Middleton and Marston and Ben Jonson and Dekker and all these other people, it was really concentrating on quarto play texts in the Renaissance, and then the problems of John Donne's poetry surfaced as a major problem, and then the transmission of the Fairy Queen, and so on and so on. And so as a result, the Renaissance has always kind of been a sort of locus classicus, a kind of center for helping people think about textual studies. And so I think that we started with the Renaissance because we thought, well, the people who work in this area are really going to get it. This is a great way to be, as it were, already running downhill. Because you don't have to convince them why scholarly editions are important. Yeah.